Fuck, we're doing this.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, episode 18. It's the 25th of February 2024. Another glorious one. HUI with HOKA with today's guest, Carlo Meister.
Word.
We have the international man of mystery here, Mr. Ben Wilson, myself, Armin Schmidt, and the man, the myth, the legend, the mixed martial media wizard behind the camera from Adapt Media, Mr. Timothy Stevens. Good morning. Good morning. Mr. Carlo Meister, do you want to take your introduction away, please?
Hey Tim. How would I say this? Hamilton, born and bred. Yeah, that's right. We're gonna get to the deeper stuff later. Yeah, so most of you will know me from obviously the mixed martial arts scene. I was a bit of a geek growing up. Varied range of hobbies and was into a varied range of sports. Went to Waikato for computer science and worked in the IT profession most of my adult life. And then was doing mixed martial arts in a hobby form, and the industry rapidly professionalized over that 5-year period, and so there's quite a big transition there. And hence we're probably in to talk today.
That's what we're going to talk about today, but let me sum it up. So the connection comes in with, of course, you're the owner, founder of, and head coach of CORE Mixed Martial Arts in Hamilton, New Zealand. And this is how we know each other for, I don't even know how many years now. I think I walked in 10 years ago or so into CORE when it was on Thackeray Street. And then Tim had his experience as well, fighting on Knees of Fury through the Train Alta program. So this is how we all know each other. And then Ben just started his jiu-jitsu and martial arts journey 4 weeks ago. So I thought it would be good to bring someone in that, looks at all of this with a fresh pair of eyes. Mm-hmm. So this is the connection. And then also, of course, we talk a lot about CORE Mixed Martial Arts, but your credentials, you're a black belt. You received your black belt in 2018 under Will Machado. You are a Kubukan first dan black belt in karate under Philip Beal, which is also your pretty much father figure / so shout out to you. We hold similar trades there because he means a lot to me also. You are a Kuryu Uchinadi black belt in karate as well under Kurt Graham, is that correct?
So there was two.
And McCarthy is the other one? Yeah. And successful gym owner of CORE Mixed Martial Arts. They have 350 square meters, state-of-the-art facility in the heart of Hamilton, recovery center, everything that you can think of under the sun. We facilitate top-level athletes on the Australasia scene, the likes of Matt the Viper Vaile. In the past, it was Luke the Jedi Jumeau. High-level athletes in the amateur scene, Ethan Brockett, Ezra Berghan, the list goes on and on and on, Aidan Johnson. But also, not just that, it's a family environment for people to thrive in, and it's church to many, just like myself, because it keeps us sane. And overall, it creates a community, so it creates the us for connection and to collaborate, because this is how we, I mentioned it again, how we got together to have a good time. So thank you, Carlo, for doing all this, not just CORE Mixed Martial Arts related, like sitting down with us and having a bit of a chat. Getting to this point with CORE thriving at the heart of New Zealand, there's a lot of hard work, dedication that goes into it. What do you contribute the success to, or many people, or yourself?
Persistence.
Yeah. Do you want to dive a bit deeper?
So persistence, it's really like that. Nothing good happens overnight, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So like whether it's skill acquisition or business growth or whatever, it all takes time. Time's kind of the key factor in that. And it's accumulated effort over time. And so persistence is like the measure you could use to make sure that you're accumulating that effort as time passes, right? So that's really it. So the main thing there was like, I'm just terrible at giving up on stuff.
That is absolutely true, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that like I carried from childhood where it was like 20 years later and I was still in my head determined that I was going to do that thing.
Yeah.
So something like this is a random example, but there's the war miniatures called Warhammer, right? And I was into like the fantasy realm, a lot of Lord of the Rings and shit as a kid, and I like started collecting a little bit of that through intermediate, and then I could never afford to buy much of it, so I obviously get some for birthdays and parents would get some and stuff, but I like had this dream of like collecting a massive army of that stuff, and I was always like, cool, when I have a bit of time and a bit of money, or even as like a retirement plan, that will be my retirement hobby, was to like tick my boxes, collecting all that shit. And I was so gutted, like 20 years later they discontinued it, and like I never got my chance to go and buy it all. They've like killed that whole line of the fantasy realm. I never thought that was going to happen. It was a huge global thing. In my head, I'm like, fuck, I need to buy that brand so I can like kick it back into gear again. But yeah, that was just one thing where it was like, I hadn't touched it on a daily basis for...
Is it still present?
Something that I wanted to do.
Have you given up on it, or is it still like in the back of your head?
Because they discontinued the brand, I've finally got to a point of giving up on that. That was really long.
That's
that long for a while.
Yeah.
That's big for you to say, though, that you actually gave up on some stuff. Cause
there's a couple of things that I've finally given up on. They're taken ages. Yeah.
And
there's a lot of... there's one of like the themes.
Sorry, man. You're just going to up and move this. Just rub on you.
That's what we got you on board.
You float.
That's fine.
It was one of the themes, I think, for my life, which has been quite interesting, which was... I had kind of a theory around like 20 that you should do stuff that an earlier version of you would have looked up to. Mm-hmm. So like I had lots of stupid dreams as like a 5-year-old, and there's quite a few of those I'm like, I should still do that because someone needs to do that. The stuff with CORE eventuated partially because of that. At like 17, it was something that got thrown around as it would be amazing if we had this, or like it was kind of like a like a pitch dream, and we ended up making it into a reality, which was pretty cool. Yeah, so I still want to build a theme park, and
I'm gonna say this right one more time. Sorry, you're gonna
That's all right, man.
And there's several other things like a theme park and whatnot that I would still love to get into.
a theme park.
There's nothing to do. What? There's nothing to do in Hamilton. Like, why?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so like, actually, I'm real impressed that turns out they've opened up like at least like a corn maze theme. It's only like about a 15-minute drive out from here, and they've got some hydro slides and stuff. But that would be like a great idea, right? Like, just more things to do around the region.
I agree.
I have never heard about this.
Well, Rainbow's End's the only theme park in the entire country.
Yeah.
Like, why do we not have at least one more?
There's been some interesting thoughts about cool stuff to do around the region. Like, Rotorua is pretty good because it's so touristy. There's lots of different things to do there. Around Horror 2, they're supposed to be doing that inland wakeboarding park, so it'll be a cable-based one, but it's just taking forever for them to get traction. Yeah, I would kind of like... I don't want to be old by the time some cool stuff finally arrives here.
Yeah, right.
You want to make it happen.
I would rather, we could find ways to move that stuff forward earlier.
I mean, in a sense of core MMA, like it goes from a shared tiny gym to, Thackeray Street, where it was still, it's nothing in comparison to what it is now. Of course, you took it to a whole nother level. I mean, 350 square meters.
That's the mat space.
That's just the mat space, and then you've got cage, you've got...
Roughly 2,000 square meters for the slide.
There you go.
House, yeah.
Recovery space, sauna, ice. There was massage therapy as well, physio on board. And then the whole area in the back, which is tricking, parkour. What is the other one? That's it, tricking, parkour?
Yeah, you get free running, which is kind of like the intersection of those two.
Yes. Anyway, the cheerleading squad in there and whatnot. So it's pretty diverse also, with like camera teams and like stuntmen coming in and utilizing the space. Now we've got what did I see the other day? Rugby teams, or like coming in to train and acquire the skill, which makes a lot of sense, how to hold, how to manipulate a body to like tackle someone to the ground to then score points, tries, whatever it is. So it is thriving, it is evolving, and I guess hard work, dedication, but it's the persistence. Like, you never... No matter what it is, like we had a show yesterday. It's called a grassroots show. Do we Underground Fight Series?
Underground was the rebranding for that, where it was going to be more about fights and less about showing off, or like less production. And just get in there, guys that maybe have never fought before, no one knows. Get in, the lights on afternoon, have your scrap. Yeah,
but even for that, there's so much mahi that goes into this, to make it happen. And we all know that sometimes you do things last minute, but you always get it done, and you never take no for an answer. And it's the same with, I think, even when you had the vision, and you shared this with me, on moving CORE from what it was beforehand into the space that we are in now, because this is a former electrical store. What was it? No leaving or what? Dick Smith. And then so many people told you, like, you fucking nuts, like, why are you doing this? And did you pull it off, or did you pull it off? You pulled it off.
It's good. We've got more to go, and it's achieved most of the things we set out to do, which is awesome.
But you can always go further, but you know.
Well, it's not still questionable how self-sustaining it is at that site.
Okay.
So we'll see that. Then there was never the major thing there, which is probably where some misalignment with a few people who thought it was going to be all about the money came in. So that was never the goal. The goal was always to do stuff that had been earmarked as not possible.
Yeah.
Right. Like Hamilton's not the biggest, obviously, population centre in New Zealand, but we pulled off probably one of the biggest dedicated gyms in the country there. So, that side of stuff was super good, and we proved a bunch of other things that came out of that. Introducing like the strength and conditioning circuits, bringing Bill from Smarter Performance on board with that, a bunch of the other trainers. The guys have won heaps of national and international titles since then. So I think we've achieved most of what we were looking for on the physical side of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about athletes so much, but, you know, you brought your kids there recently, or, you know, they're starting to thrive in the environment. You know, they're as big as well, and they have Sambo for kids, MMA for kids, kickboxing for kids, jiu-jitsu program. There's so much, you know, like for the community, you know, like how important it is to have such an hub.
It's just not often to see such a big soft mat that the kids can just run on and wrestle with dad and their friends and throw each other around, and that's promoted.
It's funny,
not told off.
Yeah, so my partner Jess and her daughter Jada have just moved up to Hamilton, and like Jada's not interested in doing MMA at all, but even her and my nephew Colton, like, they get in the space and they just want to run everywhere and dive into shit and tackle stuff, and it's just real funny where they're not interested in the sport, but the fizz of the place itself like really gets them. It's a super interesting space.
No matter what it creates, you know, like, you just leave there happy. Usually that's what I was referring to when I was saying church. However, you're such a doer, you know, and always the next thing and accomplishing, and, you know, you have so many visions. Do you sometimes even sit behind the counter on a Tuesday when all the kids' classes are going and you're transitioning into, you know, the adults are like warming up in the corner and the gym is just packed, it's loud, there's music blasting, like what are you thinking? Are you enjoying this? Do you smell the flowers sometimes, or do you have a hard time doing so?
A bit of both. Yeah, it would vary. There's sometimes where it's amazing. A lot of the time, it's a weird one. Like, when I get the time to relax, quite often I've got like a pet project that I want to get into. Yeah. So it's not often that I get to sit there and just zone out. When I'm at a point where I zone out, like, cool, now I can start on this thing. And that's quite funny, like, even being in the office trying to get anything done, man, it's funny but how much I get invested in what's happening in that space. Like, I can hear one kid being naughty on the mat from the office, and I'm like waiting, I'm like, how long till they get told off, how long, or like the chain links, that's one that like Chris cracks up at, but so Chris is one of the trainers and key figures down at CORE, but I've got like OCD around like the chain links on the bags. If one of them is broken, I can hear the noises different.
How it rattles.
Immediately irritated, so I've got to go get that fixed. So like, when I finally get time to relax, quite often I get distracted by those things. Because I want the space to be right? Like, but then when that stuff's all good, then that's pretty awesome. Like, especially stuff like the shows, because it's quite stressful building up to it, but we're at a point where once the flow of the bike show starts, I can actually almost go completely hands off and we'll still tick over. And that bit's real fun to just take 5 and just have a look around at what's happening, or just enjoy the excitement of it all. Yeah, and it was good to see you like actually just sitting down yesterday and like letting everyone else do their thing and enjoying it, and, you know, like coaching a little bit, but there's always something to delegate, but you know, for the most part, I was like, man, he's actually sitting down. Like, what is going on? That's where I get the most moments, probably. Okay. Like, because everyone else is so busy doing their thing. Yeah. Like, although occasionally someone pops up that they need help with something. Yeah. It's not. It's not distracting for the sake of being distracting. Yeah. So. But we talked about the inclusive environment and how,
you know, when you walk in, how beautiful it is, you know, just to see so many people thrive. But maybe a question for Ben, because when I was like, how are we going to set this up? Because if you take someone for their first jiu-jitsu class, kickboxing class, whatever it is, like, how am I going to transition someone that I care about into this so they not having a negative experience or they train with the right people? How was it for you when I took you? I mean, we did like I think it was like some sort of like boot camp fitness class, because I was like, come in first, get a feel for it. You don't have to be hands-on with someone or like competing or fighting, or, you know, like you don't get kicked or choked or anything. Just come and get a feel first. You know, we sweat a little bit, you get to know a few people, but what was your experience?
Well, that's like the most intimidating thing, right? Is not coming from that space and then going, come into a mixed martial arts gym with me. It's like, you know, that's like terrifying. You're like, oh, I don't want to do that. That sounds...
Because you know a lot of people now that, you know, come home or like you see them after training.
You know, I lived with Gus Barrier for 2 years. So, you know, he came home in some different shapes a few times. So it's like, and like I've been a core before through Gus.
Yeah.
But coming in
to train.
Like come and train was like, shit. But no, that was cool. Like, you know, you came in and it was just like the environment that I expected was not what the environment actually was.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Like, like everyone was so like friendly, and I think that is the main point for like getting into it, was like, okay, this isn't intimidating, or this isn't as like daunting as my perception of it was. That'd be like my biggest takeaway walking into core, was like, okay, this isn't like, you know, it's not like walking into a dungeon with a bunch of guys that are just going to break me. So that was really cool. Like, that was really refreshing.
It's quite funny. The
Dungeon
period, but so one of my coaches, Sensei Phil Beale, which I haven't mentioned, so he had a space on Lake Road called, it was the HOKA martial arts space, but there's a couple of gyms there that's not least space there. Anyway, it was down a driveway in an industrial area, but it was like quite a long drive. There was a gate which had a little sign on it. When you got to the building, the main door wasn't right there. You had to walk around the back of the building, and it was this big, like, wooden but very heavy sliding door that you couldn't see inside. You didn't know what was going to be in once you opened it, and it was real heavy, and you had to like drag it open, right? And just the number of people that freaked, because it was like real dark industrial complex right down the back of this alley. Drag that open, and we had these two cops that were coming to train for the first time, and it was so funny because they had no idea what to expect. And this was in an era where it was still not very well professionalized, and one of the cops had like shown up to training with his NZ police duffel bag, and the other one flipped at him and was like, what are you fucking doing? The fucking gangsters are gonna like stab you if they find out that you're a cop. Like, fucking go change it. And then I dragged open the door, and it was me coaching, and I was like probably about 21 maybe, and then they're just like, oh, thank God. But it was so funny to hear them real panicky, and they were super concerned about that.
Well, like, that's the perception, well, at least like my perception. I can't speak for like everyone, but I think that relief of like, okay, this isn't like, you know,
I'm safe.
Because that's the biggest thing. It's like you feel like it's like I'm just walking into a lion's den. That's not cause.
I like dungeon. The vocab there is awesome.
And when those doors open, you walk in, that's people always looking to see if it's them, and you're like, oh, I was looking at me.
That's funny.
Hey, that's just what you're gonna get, but you know, just gym culture. I would like to make a little transition into your, you know, coaching space at Core, of course, but you know, you are, the field is much broader than that, which the New Zealand Mixed Martial Arts Federation, New Zealand Sambo, and then the WKA, which is the World Kickboxing Association related to New Zealand, where you fill different roles as coach, as whatever your involvement is. You know, you usually take up a lot of heads, not just one, you know, administrative, you know, recruitment, call it whatever, you can elaborate on it. But you can pick from each one, of course, maybe examples and whatnot, but in your, like, what makes a great coach for you? And then you can relate it to Sambo maybe, or
it's different.
Related to the martial art, you mean?
No, just like the role in It's very like
Pick one.
There's so many good coaches, and they all have different skill attributes, and that works differently for different students, right? Something that when we did, so the NZMA Federation's been awesome. The coaching team there are amazing, learning heaps through them, and I really enjoy being part of that. I think
2015 you joined, eh?
I might have been, it was around then. I was going to say we'll be going on about 10 years involvement. And I wasn't part of the official federation coaching team for the first couple of years. But what was interesting was that they were affiliated with a group called IMAF, which is the International MMA Federation. That's just sort of recently ended for the NZ scene, for the time being at least. IMAF put in a coaching certification program. Now, the technical content of that wasn't amazing. It was very broad, and they were trying to accommodate for a lot of different countries and styles, I think. Obviously, like a lot of, let's say, Eastern European style of wrestling is quite different to the American freestyle, and that's just for wrestling, let alone for all the different combinations of stuff that go into MMA. So there was a lot of tech there that wasn't super relevant for what we would normally coach in. But what was interesting was it gave me a different perspective, and one of the perspectives that the program gave me was your role as like a national federation coach is very different to your role as a day-to-day coach for a gym or a person. Some stuff like that, for example, was not for a national, if we were a team traveling and I've only got you for the week, was like not trying to correct anything or change anything stylistically, but how to like organize a quick group session where you don't know what each individual person's attributes are, and how do you then make a productive half-hour workout out of that, while still covering some base skill work. That was real interesting. So it was like very quick formats for getting people into moving, minor adjustments for the groups very quickly, and an iterative process for that. They did some stuff like demonstrating from 3 different angles, including a right-handed, left-handed switch if you can, so that the participants in that group can quickly imitate what you're doing. But there was just some interesting stuff in that. It was a perspective I hadn't taken before. And previously, even when we travelled, I only ever coached people that were on my team, and we, obviously know each other's strengths and weaknesses pretty well, and their skill set and that sort of stuff. But coaching someone you don't know, it was quite an interesting process. And that's something that was cool. We got a lot better with that with NZMA. All of us, obviously, on that coaching team there have our own styles, but we work together super well as a coaching team, I think. And I really enjoy that. Then the one thing that I thought that the WK Federation did super well for New Zealand, what are we now, 2024, so it must have been 2022 when they were competing in Wales, yeah, was they had dedicated training camps building up to it. So by that one I actually knew most of the MMA athletes. There was only about 5, but I knew pretty well what their skill level was at, what they were good at, if they're in the fight, at what point are they starting to lose, where I need to be concerned, like this is the boundary of where they will get to in the fight before this breaks, all of that sort of stuff, versus when there's someone you completely don't know. You don't know whether they're the kind of hearty kid that's going to work their way out of that and come back to win that fight, or whether this is like, oh, I should have intervened already. So yeah, I thought WK did super good. There was definitely some lessons for me there. Without getting political with it all, I'd say IMAF is a tournament structure, and International Federation is much better organised, but the WK New Zealand team was punching above its weight in terms of what the national team were doing. Big shout out to Emilio and the team for that. They did a really good job, and there was a few takeaways for me from that, being involved with that group, where I wanted to bring that back to the other federations as well.
Well, the relationship is still alive, They just did the trials at CORE as well. Yeah,
absolutely. So there was some cool stuff to take away from both of those. The NZ Sambo one's been interesting. There's a lot of cool opportunities. So one of the reasons that we're affiliated with a bunch of these different bodies was really from an opportunity perspective. A lot of them super relate to each other. The WK and NCMA both offer an MMA opportunity, not just a specialised kickboxing format only or whatever. And then Sambo has the combat Sambo, which is quite close in skill set to MMA, just the scoring is different. But the NZ Sambo one opens up a totally different realm of competitors and pathways for our competitors. So the important thing for us was that we ran into a scale problem at CORE now. We got so big that we have more than one person in each weight division that is ready for international experience. and there's only one spot, or at max maybe 2 spots on each of the weight divisions for the NZMAF team. So what do we do with the other 3 that are training in the meantime? So our plan was to basically split them off into the other federations to compete for those. And then perhaps they come back towards the NZMAF Federation later, or they might jump directly being pro. Doesn't really matter. But Sambo and NZ Sambo has got a big directive for growth from the International Affairs Organisation. They need Oceania to be involved for the Commonwealth Games coming up for the Olympic Games coming up in Brisbane. I can't remember exactly what the year is. It might be like 2028 or 30 or whatever it is. So they're funding the growth for this region, which has been awesome for our team because we've had, I think it was 2022 as well. We had 4 international athletes funded for the Asian Champs. Me and Anna and Aiden and Gus got funded to go to the World Championships. Each one of those was worth 5 to 10k in travel expenses. That was all completely paid for. So our alignment with them was an immediate no-brainer. Really funny unintended consequence of that was alienated some people from our gym because they wanted to have a mindset of no, we're purists, we're only going to play in this niche and that's outside, or it's us versus them instead of being together with them. And that was a super interesting side effect. They were almost mad that we were putting in a Sambo program instead of having just more jiu-jitsu.
But it's martial arts.
Yeah, there was a real disconnect there.
Well, my question then would be, Carlo, you as a, you made it very clear that there's a difference between being a day-to-day coach at the gym, and then obviously what I took away from it is that when you work on the national or international stage and you maybe have not coached someone long enough or good enough to actually know what is their, not just physical abilities, what is their skill set, but also what's their character, when do they break, what do you have to do to get them firing at the right moment. But what did you do in that particular space? How did you get everyone motivated on track again?
I'd say that I did probably a pretty poor job of that, and as outcome, 2 of the not main coaches, but 2 of the larger players in our gym left or opened our gyms. That was probably going to happen anyway. I don't think this was the catalyst for it, but it's just an interesting thing. My normal way of resolving that or allowing that would just be through conversation.
Yeah.
But of course that has to be able to come up within a setting where it's taken on board, I guess. And if it doesn't happen, then it's quite hard to explain. And so for our development squad team, which is where we'd kind of refocused the energy just before that anyway. That's why we had that program in, because those are the guys that are going, and girls, that were going to go on those pathways. We had Aiden and Gus both go. And Anna was on the team at that point as well, and she also got funded to go and compete overseas for that. So with that squad, we sat down and explained, this is why your training program is going to be quite diverse. We're going to learn the niche, some of the, with the different martial arts, what core and why we have the name of it, but it was about refining it down to the centralized system of stuff that works.
Yeah.
One of the things that I didn't appreciate about that to start with, and I do now, is that actually learning those base skills, they're so niche and scenarios, there's attributes you get from doing it with their training methodology, their competition framework, their incentives. So let's take, we're going to diverge quite a long way here if you worry, but
that's fine. I'm about to get you back, but just finish off.
But basically, take someone a real common problem we have with grapplers is that they're not confident taking a wrestling shot in case the other person stuffs it.
Sure.
Because it taxes them energy-wise. So a lot of our really high-level grapplers go, I'm having trouble with my takedowns. Even though they grapple, exclusively, that's all they do, right? So one of the big things for me then is that's cool, come and join our MMA sparring, because the incentives are different. Instead of being worried about conserving energy and waiting for the perfect shot, you don't want to get punched in the face. So they go straight after the shot, within the first second. Right, so the incentives change very rapidly, how you play the game. And if you've done that for a little bit, you get real confident shooting on people because, that's what you have to do to survive. And then it translates back to straight grappling. You don't have the fear of it anymore. You're I'm better off taking the shot and working my way back into the fight than waiting for forever. So, Aiden's probably one of our best active wrestlers at the moment, but even though his goals were only grappling based, the training was better for him to stay in the MMA room. And like internally we had two teams match up. There was supposed to be like the grappling pro team and the MMA pro team. And what ended up happening was the MMA pro team won the grappling against the grappling team. So that was the proof of the pudding that, oh, okay, this makes more sense to me now. Right, different incentives. Sambo Judo have a very different style of playing the game. It's more phase-based and they care more about winning one key moment. But a bunch of that translates, and it's quite funny because it's just gone the other way for Matt Free, where he was really capable of winning his fight yesterday with some big judo throws into quick submissions. And he won that phase, but he didn't finish the execution on the finish. And what happened was, obviously MMA incentive is over a longer duration of time, with there's no pauses in the action. And so what happened was when he didn't quite get the finish, there was no reset, and so then that started to wear on him each time as he's getting punched, and then his ability to execute what he was doing was going down. So it's just, I think you need the balance of it, right? Learn how to do it from those different things, and so you don't learn those different attributes that make up those different sports without putting your foot in there.
You gotta experience it.
Yeah, and so like one big thing for us, we're such a big gym with a huge timetable, but a lot of people make the mistake, they want to be good at, let's say, jiu-jitsu. They go for exactly the same class type and they just ramp up more of it, but it's the same stimulus. So like, in my view, your body needs different stimulus to promote growth. And if you're getting the same stimulus, but just a lot more of it, it doesn't necessarily evoke any change. So it's a really interesting one for that, but I think that's a trap most people fall into. It's just like I'm only going to star trap, or I'm only going to do the technique and I never go to sparring.
Yeah.
All those ways to plateau very quickly.
But that just shows, I think that's the perfect transition to, you need also like different coaches to stimulate you in different ways, because they all know how to get the best out of you, or you take the best bits for like growth, if you always just go to the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you explained it quite well, but I think it's perfect to like sum this up now, because you said day-to-day coach versus being on the international scene and whatnot. Some athletes you don't know, therefore you maybe have to like step back and let someone else take over who maybe had some more experience with that person. Therefore it's maybe you can say you have to reduce your like ego, like wanting to coach, let someone else step in and observe for a little longer and let them take over, perhaps.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Just jump in here, one other one that I got to do in 2022 was coach with the Lebanese team. That was super interesting because it's like totally different culture even, right?
You gotta understand that as well. Yeah, the cultural aspect.
Seminar to there, and got invited to join the youth nationals and coach one or two of the kids for that as well. And what was funny about that was what influence you can and that's for famous people and that sort of stuff, but what influence you can have just by being present.
Yeah,
because I didn't know these kids. I didn't really have anything to contribute on the coaching side, and they were amazing. They were really, really good. But they were just like, oh, I've got to perform extra well because this key coach that, and they all recognized me as being Michelle Montague's coach. And so she'd won IMAF Worlds. So they all know her as like the world champ, and it's like, oh, the world champ coach is here. So they like all went super under it. It was really, really funny to watch that.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, I didn't add any value at all other than them having like a little bit more self-belief or self-assurance. So it was real funny.
I like that.
Yeah, so that was real cool to see.
Well, but those accolades have been accumulated prior all these years. You only got to the world championships with Michelle because of your coaching, not just accolades, but also skills. You just gel with her for whatever reason it is. There's always an X factor, with some it just works better, and this is why she wants you to be there for, flies you over for PFL each time. So it does make a lot of sense to me, but I keep bragging on about that as well, that sometimes it's just the present that is important, having a person there to like give you extra confidence or like a boost in a certain moment. I guess this is another aspect of being a good coach, like being available and present, or making yourself available without like, sometimes you don't have to do much, you just have to be there. And that's all it is. Wow. I was about to ask like what makes you so essential for all those organizations, but I'm going to sum it up for you. I think it's exactly that. It's your adaptivity, because I feel like that's what you're really good at. You can like switch in a moment and adapt to a situation that occurs instantly. You take everything that you've learned and you apply it in such an efficient way that it works out. I've experienced that many times, and I reckon I'm just going to take it here for you and mention it. And the what do you think? But what do you think? This is my question. I mean, I could answer it right now because I think we elaborated on that quite a bit. But what do you think is as a coach? What is your X factor? What makes you so special? Why do you think most athletes want you to be there?
I don't know, but I think that adaptivity bit was one that's interesting. I think that's something that, well, I've seen your speak sheet before we want to talk about, right? So it's a bit cheating, but the computer science side of life, I think, comes in a little bit there. It's a bit of, there's a bunch of stuff from when I grew up, what I was good at school, all that sort of stuff, I think, which applies.
Of course.
That's a chunk of it, and I'll mention that in a second. But the other bit is probably, I think, for the most part, I stay reasonably level-headed. I'm not very quick to respond emotionally in anger or anything like that, or in frustration. And so over a longer period of time, I think that just having someone level-headed and reasonable to turn to when you need it can be an attribute that someone like Michelle really looks up to. Quite often if she needs like someone to just help her calm down or like see a little bit of a more logical path, something we've been going through just lately is her fighter management stuff. And there's some organisational changes happening for PFL Belt, or they went through a merger, there's some contract stuff happening. Her main training partner's just left PFL. So there's like all this stuff going on, and she was a little bit stressed about what her fight plan was going to look like for the year. She's doing super well, living in the USA at the moment, wants to continue her career there. And there was a chance she was going to get dragged back down here for fights. But it was just even the ability to just rein her in for a second and say, hey, like, don't stress about that. You can still live in the USA and fight back here in New Zealand. That's fine. Like, we've travelled all over the world. We used to fly for every fight. That's not going to be a big stress. Doesn't mean that you have to uproot your life there and relocate back to here if you're not ready for that. And it just took her a moment to be like, oh, yeah, okay, you're right. I'm actually okay. Like that sort of stuff. So I think that's probably one of the key bits. With our team at the gym, one of the ways that we grew as an organisation was by not being emotionally irrational, I guess. And so we actually acquired some of our competition. The coaches themselves joined our team where there used to be animosity, but we'd always sort of left the door open for that to change. And it did. And so like we ended up absorbing like 2 or 3 of our main competitors completely into CORE through that, whereas previously there would be like a us and them, like we'll never deal with that person, or we'll never offer them improvement.
Never say never.
Yeah, so that stuff was interesting. The other bit about the adaptability bit is like going through from intermediate outputs. Probably one of the key things that happened was I did really well on this like little internal test they had at Moro, which was like a little problem solving one. It's like a national one, and it was kind of maths and logic based, but like once a term they'd give you 5 questions or something and you'd work through them. Anyway, I got 24 out of 25. The very last question on the very last test I fucked up. I was so mad that I didn't get 100% at the end of that, and I got an award at school and stuff for getting the highest ranked at Moro for that. And I got ironically overconfident on that last one. I'm like, oh yes, sweet, it'll just be this, and you got it wrong. But the problem solving side of stuff was something that kind of stuck with me, and through like take computer science, maths, physics, those were kind of like my strong areas of school. This was a lesson at university, so right up to like at the time 7th form or year 13, I was on track for like scholarship level study at school, and I did pick up a few scholarships, but not the ones that I was originally targeting. What I got to like first year of uni was just how hard actual maths and actual physics gets. I'd got from like being able to almost like get A's and everything all the time without any extra homework to like starting to get B's, and it was dropping pretty quickly, and I'm like, fuck, I really have to, if I wanted to go down this route, I'd really have to work super hard at that, take like real high level calculus. I can't easily visualize the more than 3 dimensions. Like I know the principles, but it gets to some point in the math there where those real special geniuses, they can actually see it in their mind's eye. I can't do that at the high level of that. And I had been able to all the way up to there. So I realized like, okay, I definitely will never make it as like a theoretical physicist. I just don't have the ability to do that. My major originally was maths, economics, and computer science, and the math and economics bit after the first year got really hard. I was just like, fuck, I just can't, unless I was focused on purely this all the time, I just can't get my head into that level. So I ended up dropping those two after the second year and switching just to computer science. And that one I just kind of intuitively just got and made way more sense. But what I realized was like, oh, I'm one of those guys they laugh about on like Big Bang Theory, where I'm like an applied physicist, right? Like I can figure out the principles, but it was more about how do we take that and build shit with it. I couldn't just give you like a high level theory and stop there. And so with the MMA side of stuff, it's kind of the same, because you learn, like I'm never going to be the best at any one of those specialist disciplines. But what I can do reasonably well was being exposed to them long enough to then start to be able to go, cool, and the application for us is this. Or like in this moment, like draw from that skill base to try and build something, right?
That's his X factor.
Yeah, so the stuff with like the computer science realm is interesting because that's a huge part of our job there, right? Like why I do it was I like building shit. I like building shit. Like it's not so much, I don't enjoy the programming for the sake of doing it. And my cousin, who I'm real close with, and a bunch of my friends, they like the science of it. They want to test every new technology. They want to like invent a better way to do the exact same thing, where I'm like, oh fuck that, like let's just go and build cool shit with it. Like I want to build cool shit. And so that's the applied side of stuff, right? So I'd rather like, I don't care if the tech doesn't move on for a minute, let me do more with it right now. Yeah, so I think that applies to stuff like the gym as well. Like the physical building of building it was cool. I like that from the tech. And
More like building your athlete, you know, with everything that you know, and fill his, you know, being to be the best version.
Did you spend more time when you would say start playing, like, did you play wrestling games when you were a kid, or UFC video games, building your fighter?
Yeah. I did. The one for me, this sounds real dumb, like, it's the persistence and a little bit of OCD. For me, this sounds so stupid. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, I had to complete, like, everything in that game. I'd never really got OCD about a game before.
Side missions.
Yeah. I literally did Area 1, all the gang territory. I must have sunk, like, some ridiculous hours over 2 years on that one particular game. It was so stupid, and I don't know why I got attached to that one. I played like a few games growing up, and that was why I got into computer science in the first place. My cousin in like year 12, year 13 taught me how to make some Flash games, and so we were at the same age, but he was a year before me at school. And yeah, we both like did a Waikato Uni exam while we were at Boys High and passed that, and so our first year and a half worth of university was paid for. So that was quite a cool one, and that was based off building games, like really simple Flash games. The exam was like a 6-hour one, and it was pretty gnarly, but it was so worth it. And so like out of my cousin Andre, me, and my friend Mike, who ended up hiring us a little while later, like all three of us did that same exam and got that scholarship.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah, which was real sweet, which is why I ended up staying in Hamilton, because Waikato Uni is really good for computer science. So.
Yeah, they got a good reputation. All right, we summed up the X factor, not so much in a small portion, but, you know, sometimes it's just good to elaborate. It doesn't really matter, you know, take the best bits. But I want to go from, you know, the introduction, core, you know, you as a coach, international stage and national stage, into more the athlete student. That's a question for you, Tim, as well, and for you to, like, prompt your answer as well. Like, when you walked into core and, you know, it's the dungeon, we get that out of the way, but what is it that you would look for in a coach to be like, oh yeah, that would make me feel looked after, soothed, I want to stay here, I want to come back? And the question for you, think about it, and then you spit it back to you, is when you did your Train Alta, you know, program to like get ready for your fight, what was it that was most efficient, sufficient? When were you most productive and your best? Like, what were the coaches doing with you to be at that stage? But Ben, you're going to go first, and then we go back to you, and then I have the question for Carlo.
For me personally, it's especially like those first like couple sessions where you've like met them for the first time, and you're like, you know, getting a feel for what life's going to be like for the next forever session. There's like a little bit of like pastoral care and like, are you getting it? Are you okay? Like just like watching what you're doing and actually like not taking an interest in you specifically, but just like keeping an eye out and like checking in, but also the freedom to just like, you know, this is what you're going to do, go and do that, and then just sort of keeping an eye and going like, oh, hey, you know, I saw you doing that, maybe approach it from this angle. and be as simple as that for me, because the rest just comes with doing it. But I think a little bit of like pastoral care and just taking a bit of time to for me it just feels, you're like, okay, cool, I'm like looked after, you know. I'm not just like,
I can play a little bit. They're gonna come back. They check in on me. I'm gonna be fine. All right, Tim.
I like it. For me, what made my most progress, I would say, was more to do with the culture that was at the gym rather than the individual coach. So I think maybe we did 3 sessions throughout that.
Yeah.
And then it was Chris, so that was mainly jiu-jitsu. Where I got most of my confidence from came from the striking classes, and that was just, hey, Amin, hey, Ethan, Ezra, Hamona, Isaac, could I just do a session with you? Yeah, sure. Yep, sweet. I'll be in the morning. I'll be here tomorrow at 5 a.m. because I want to train at 6. Oh, just for me? Yeah. Oh, okay. Sweet. Thank you. Does it cost? No. Oh, okay. I just know what it's like. Let's help you out. And I was just like, Dan was just like, wow, sweet. Like someone who's like fighting all the time wants to just do one-on-one with me. And then from there, it was just like, man, like someone's believing in me, or I'm doing something right to make these athletes want to invest their precious time, because they're here all the time. I can imagine they're working full time. And Ethan Brockett's coach gave me a couple sessions. And there was one particular session I recorded. It was me, you, Ethan, and Ezra. I actually got a video of it. I'm sitting on the mat, and you're both standing around like.
It's Gus.
Gus, that's it. Gus, that's right. And we all took turns talking about takedowns, and then kicks, and punches, and then rolling. And it was just through that introduction to the community.
It was a wholesome moment.
It was very good.
Because it was really cool, like to get everyone had, you know, it's the coaching side. Everyone had their say, and everyone was just respected for their input, and we took time, you know, to like let things marinate. It was the perfect ratio between like having a conversation, application, stopping, having a rest, next person comes in, brings their expertise, boom, done. Of course, you know, Gus Berrier's New Zealand representative and went to, you know, like holds all the accolades when it comes to wrestling. So that was his part. Ethan Brockett, you know, had us, you know, everyone had their say, you know, and then it was like, Tim was just like, what am I getting here? Like, this is amazing. Like, I saw the excitement. That was really cool. But from this and this together, like I merged it together. Like I was having a conversation with someone else recently where we talked about Andre Paulette, actually from City Kickboxing, talked about like skill versus attitude. Like when you look at a student, what do you think is more important? Elaborate.
Yeah, probably attitude, right? Because the skill is the part we're going to grow. That's the standard response from most, as I mentioned, right? But interestingly, when Dan Hocko entered UFC, one of the most well-known UFC fighters, he had his own gym and he did some trials for it, and his only concern was actually fitness. I thought that was really interesting. So he wasn't selecting based on skill. His understanding was like, we'll train the skill once you join our team, but if you're super fit, you can train more. Therefore, we can build the skill faster. And yeah, I just thought that was a really interesting one.
Do you agree? Do you agree with that? Partially?
It's a totally different approach from ours. And City Kickboxing in their motto originally had basically fitness, but not without skill. Like that was more or less what their motto was. It would get you in the best shape possible to fight, and they'd work on that. Ours had always been the opposite. Ours was always originally all about the skill, which is a traditional jiu-jitsu kind of mindset. I think was like, I can always fight up in weight, or if I have the right skill set, I can beat someone that's more athletic than me. But I'm slowly coming around, and a diverse variety of friends. You have someone like Bill Smart, who I spend a lot of time with him training me in the mornings, and we just converse a lot around that. And you start to understand, like, oh, okay, why is the importance of the fitness and the attitude and all that stuff? Why does that enable a better athlete long term? And of course, it comes down to simple stats like how much time they spend in the gym. You know, like if the attitude's right and they're there more consistently, then they're going to get better. If they're prioritizing that over other things, they're going to get better. So of course, those things are important. You can have someone super talented and dead lazy, and they go nowhere, right? But just come back to on the student-coach relationship side, what I wanted to just chip in on that was kind of what my role in there is. And I don't think I'm like a super coach or anything like that. I think there's quite a big difference, and I actually think about it really differently. My role in both the gym and a little on the national team is more like as an enabler. Like, I consider myself building the framework for other people to coexist in their relationship. So it's like our coaching team, it's to develop the stuff out so that they can do that with their students, and that we get the right exposure across the board with the different types of classes and sort of stuff, rather than me being a key figure in that.
A force multiplier.
Yeah, well, because we ran into like everything, it's a scaling problem, right? I can't do that on a one-on-one level with 500 members of the gym. But there's a point now where there's heaps of people I don't even know who they are. And my partner Jess was just laughing at me the other day. There was one where a guy, we were just at Theobroma, the coffee shop, the chocolate coffee shop in town, and he recognised me as being from CORE. He's just recently started, but he didn't know what my name was. And she was like, how does one of the guys there not know who you are, kind of thing? And I'm like, to be honest, like, we're at that size. There's people that are in the morning class every time that I've never even seen.
Yeah.
Like, it just, yeah, so like, that's crazy, right?
Yeah, but it does make sense. It's just the size here.
Yeah. So
how do you manage that many people? It's impossible. You can't do it by yourself. But get the framework out, get all the people in place. Like enable them to showcase their skill. Get a purse or salary, whatever it is, like hourly rate and
that's
return.
The key bit, right? Like, so one of the big things for us that was a big change was looking at not just the fighters, but also how do we enable people to become a professional in a sport that hasn't been a professional sport in New Zealand before. So how does someone transition into doing this full time? Because there's not enough money in it, right?
Good, yeah, good.
So Chris
approach.
A great example of someone at our gym that left his day-to-day job and is most successfully transitioned into a personal trainer for jiu-jitsu. Like, that role didn't exist in New Zealand 5 years ago, kind of thing. There was no one that was doing that stuff full-time as a PT coach just for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and he created a pathway, and now the young jiu-jitsu students or his students can be like, oh, how did you do this? And he can be like,
massively.
There you go. Well, here's the framework.
Down the ladder.
Yeah, but all right, let's jump one further. Of course, with what I just described, like the stages that we're taking here. The student-coach relationship enabled you to travel all the way around the globe. You went to the IMF championships multiple times. You went to Japan for Pancrase with Vaile, for instance. You went to anywhere in the world. From going to PFL with Michel Montague to Brisbane for the Oceania Championships and IMF. Any stories that just stand? I mean, there's an abundance, but anything that like comes to the top of your head that like stands out that you want to share, like something that's like still blows your mind till this day? Maybe Luke's debut in Auckland for the UFC and the whole training leading up to that. Is there any particular moments or stuff that that comes to mind?
There's been lots of interesting moments. I definitely probably the one takeaway I probably should have died several times already. Like, it's amazing how, I want to say how safe the world is, and obviously it's not. Maybe I've just been really, really lucky, but I've been in some pretty precarious positions where like probably should have been a little bit more careful and haven't been.
Yes.
And nothing really bad's happened just yet. So that's also been pretty interesting, and how diverse the world is. I was lucky enough with Michelle at PFL to have sat down with Ray Sefo. So Ray Sefo was he was the owner for PFL until they sold it. Now he's like the matchmaker, but he's a New Zealand Hall of Famer. Was a kickboxing world champion, super well known. And yeah, I reached out to him. Alcohol's a funny one. Like, I don't promote alcohol. I enjoy like having a drink, and it's something I need to be mindful about not overdoing, because I have a tendency to go down that route. But occasionally it enables something, and quite often it's like if I'm hesitant about doing something, and then sometimes after a beer or two I'm like, fuck it, I'll just shoot them a message. And a couple of times that's worked out really well in our favour. And one of them was I had like a drink or two, and I was like, because the reason I even started MMA was to watch Ray Sefo fight on TV one night at the Batch. It was like 10 p.m. TV2 on NZ used to screen the K1 World Champs.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the first experience I ever had. Was like we just arrived there. I was like spending 30 minutes before Beard flickered on, and he was fighting in the Grand Prix. And so that was like what sparked my interest in even getting into martial arts at all. Anyway, so to be there, and I like shot him a message, just like, hey, look, I'm gonna Michelle's coach over here from New Zealand. Super excited to be here. Thank you for having us. And he was like, oh, hey, how about we catch up for coffee in the morning?
Oh, he initiated it.
And I was like, oh shit, okay, yeah, awesome. Then I got a message in the morning and he was like, hey, look, man, I'm real sorry, I can't make it. And I was like, receiving that live. So I'm like, I just had this flight today and just super busy and there's all this shit going on. But then it went from like, I'm so sorry that I had to bail on you last second, let's do lunch instead. And he like took me out, instead of just doing like a 5-minute coffee, it was like we ended up for an hour at lunch.
Nice.
And one of the big things that he talked about, which I super rated, was getting exposure outside of New Zealand, because we're too isolated here to take a fresh perspective on day-to-day stuff. So he went from being like as a Pacific Islander from South Auckland, and I'm just like, look at what this kid managed to achieve as he grew up in the sport, and then everything he did since then. And he was saying like, of all the guys his era, most of them stayed in New Zealand, most of them are now still broke, most of them didn't take that next step beyond their athletic career, versus he like embraced the both Japanese and American culture. He went after like creating his own promotion with the side of PFL. We then like went and pitched for investment and got all those shareholders on board in a very American capitalist growth kind of mindset, which when I look at like what his, and this is me presuming a little bit of it, but what initially I presumed his formal education was, and you know, South Auckland's not necessarily known as having people that come up with that mindset. I just like looked at him like, man, I idolize you. Like, this is interesting because all the shit he was super articulate, really well thought out. Just a lot of the stuff that he said resonated with me really well. Versus take someone who's very similar upbringing of the same era like Mark Hunt, and there's a total disconnect there. Like, I can't emulate the way that Mark fights. There's a lot of stuff that he does which I'm just never going to be able to relate to the same way. So with Ray, it was like a really interesting perspective because I never got to spend time to converse with him. I didn't know that was how that was going to go at lunch. I thought it was just going to be, you know, like a fanboy moment around just meeting someone that fought really well. But there was lots of good stuff in there, and he said, look, here's the key thing for you to take away is go get your experience overseas, get exposure to different stuff, meet different people, ways of thinking, and then bring that back to New Zealand. And yeah, that was one that was like, cool. I feel like more like on the right track with that. But it was just like a nice highlight moment to be like, okay, that's like reinforcement of how I've already been approaching this. Just some history for you guys, you might not even know, but we got heaps of random questions because CORE jumped from being quite a small gym to our one now. Like, we're 5 times bigger than what our previous place was, and it's freaking super expensive. Our lease alone is pushing $400,000 a year just in rent. Right, so that's an absolute biz. But we did that through a capital raise. So we did the same way that like an IT company in the States would. If you're a startup, you would go out, pitch for investment, get a group of people to buy in on that. So like, we just took that same approach for MMA, without being in the IT industry and being around that sort of stuff all the time. Most of the older generation of coaches in New Zealand just had no idea how to even go about that. So then like, how the fuck did you guys at like 25? We did that at like 20, I was probably like 25 when that process started.
Shit.
How the fuck did you guys go from being like a little small club and you're only 25 and you haven't even built up anything yet to like suddenly jumping way over the size that most of the other gyms had like peaked at? Yeah, and it was just like, oh, but it just made sense to me because we deal with this stuff in the IT industry and it's the logical way to go about it. Yeah, so I really rate all of that. I thought that was interesting. I thought it was super interesting hearing Ray say that he'd like, you know, gone out and done a capital raise and blah blah blah, and all the people that were on his board, and he was talking about much of that, and I thought that was super cool. Yeah, so coming back to the stuff that stands out, there's heaps of random stuff that's happened on all.
Let's pick one.
But that was a great one. Right?
Well, I did not expect you to say a lunch with Ray Sefo, but I mean, look what came out of it and what you took away from it is, you know, whatever it means to you. This is, you know, I'm just offering the platform.
That's probably like one of the more PC ones, right?
Probably.
Podcast appropriate.
But yeah,
appropriate.
Do you want to get another one in from like fight related or backstage stuff that you saw? And I mean, I know, like, I get more interested now in all of that, so I would love to ask you more about that, but you know, just pick whatever you would like.
I'm just going to sort this battery out.
Yes, sir.
So we pause?
Yep.
Track?
Yeah.
Clap?
No.
Take it away, Carlo.
Yeah, in terms of specific fight stuff internationally, probably highs and lows. definitely one of the highs would have been Michelle Montague winning the world champs. That was great. That was our first time with someone winning the IMAF tournament from our gym. I've been through it a few times with some of the other athletes, but yeah, that was a real biggie and quite a strange moment, and it was a big personal challenge. I've been going through like a lot of negative stuff in the year building up to that, so I've been prepared to walk away from the sport. I'd sworn never go back to IMAF and never go back to that venue, and I had to let all of that shit go in that process, and that was real cool. I'm real cool to do that with her. And then, so that was probably like a low that finished on a super high. The other ones that were like insane were like Luke Jumeau's fight at the UFC in Japan. That one was just a surreal experience because of how nothing it was. Like that sounds weird to describe, but the fight was super early in the morning, like before 8 a.m. And we'd been traveling for like several hours before that, and the Japanese crowd make zero noise. So like the fight happened, we could hear the other corner, us and the commentators talking, and there was no other noise in the arena. The fight finished, and it was like we were on the bus on the way home. Like 2 hours later, Luke kind of like fucking slaps his legs, like, holy fuck, I just realized I lost. And like it was weird because it felt almost like we'd been in a bit of a trance. He wasn't even allowed coffee that morning. That inspector literally made me, my only job for the whole morning was to get him a really strong coffee. I like coffee as well, and we're the only two on our four that drank it. And I finally like got the cup, got back to the changing room, and the inspector tipped it out.
Why?
It's not allowed. It's performance enhancing. Coffee, energy drinks.
So everywhere else in the world allows it, but apparently they were unsure in Japan, and because it's the time difference there in the US, they couldn't call a guy in the US to sanity check it. So that's what we did, yeah.
Sure.
Poured it out. And I just like watched Luke's face as I'm like tipping out his morning coffee.
But when I went to the German championships, that was the same thing. There was no coffee allowed.
Well, so for anything IMAF related, normally that when you're backstage, they don't allow you to do that. But caffeine itself isn't, in normal doses, isn't a banned substance.
But what I know from the UFC is you always have an inspector with you.
Yeah, well, take someone like IMAF. You could walk out of the venue, have a coffee, walk back into the venue. That's fine. You're just not allowed it in the warm-up area.
Random.
Yes.
That's crazy.
So, well, they don't allow.
Well,
they don't allow any.
If you don't see it, then you know it's not happening. But you know, it's just stupid to like get it in.
That they just they in the backstage area, in the staging area for IMAF, they only allow water, not allowed anything.
Yeah.
Right. They even take PFL. They even give you energy drinks and shit when you're there, but you're not allowed them until after the fight. So that was just super interesting. Coffee was just such a normal one. And he'd been allowed it in Auckland, so it was quite surprising, for that. But it was, copy aside, it was just the fact that there was no peak of emotion anywhere in the whole thing. Like, he was fighting kind of half asleep, we were all drained, jet-lagged, there was no crowd hype, there was just nothing. And then we were back, because it was so far away from the hotel, we were back on the bus by ourselves, like half an hour later. Again, no noise, no atmosphere, nothing. And it didn't really kick in that anything had even happened until like midday. And then it was like, holy fuck, that's all over. What the hell? Like, that was insane. So that was super interesting, like, contrast experience.
Yeah. But all the big competitors, they talk about exactly that in Japan, you know, that they react with like a sweep or something that's super technical, like, wow. They recognize that, but you know, with the big punches and blows and whatnot, they tend to not. For whatever it is.
Well, him especially was such a contrast, because you take that versus like his UFC Auckland debut. Home crowd reception was insane. There was all this energy. He wins that fight. He's the fucking man. Like all this stuff, and then going from that one to that one, it was just like such a unusual set of circumstances.
Also, you know, like something. It's got nothing to do with Luke. I mean, all credit to him and what he's done for the scene. But what really impressed me with Michelle, like talking about an extra add-on when she flew to the World Championships, you told me that because she, the way that she fought, you know, she had to like be very strict, you know, to like actually make the limit. Because for IMF, you have to weigh in on the day, not the day before. So she every day consecutively for as long as you remain in the competition. And she made it to the final, so that means a few days in a row. Maybe there's a lay day in between, so you have to maintain the weight. Anywho, she prepared and pre-cooked, and however she did it with the travel restrictions, all the meals in New Zealand and flew them over to like have the peak performance when it comes to nutrition. And I feel like apart from the skill and her wrestling accolades and whatnot, what I really admire with her is that above all is that her willingness to be as professional as possible. That, you know, it was high level amateur, but you know, she would always make sure that she was like dialed in.
What we always said about Michelle was like she was a professional athlete with amateur skill set. Her skills were still pretty raw. She'd played rugby competitively and done a few other sports.
BMX.
But yeah, her mentality with that was the first time I'd heard someone say that. And she was so funny because even me as the coach was surprised. The other competitors for the New Zealand team were surprised, right? And Michelle's response was like, do you guys not want to win? Why the fuck have you not done this? And I was just like, that's a really good point. Like,
boom.
Yeah, right. Like, she was way onto it. And that was the whole thing with that whole trip. She did that well. We did a good little mental prep. Like, I'd been to Bahrain before.
Oh, you told me this.
Like, I've tried to set this enough the scene. One of the guys, he's our liquor license guy, but he's one of my life and business mentors, is Rapidity. And one of the things he does a bit of work in now is like a little bit of mental coaching. And so just some of the stuff that we'd discussed from gym related things had like come out here, and we talked about like trying to minimize any shock or distraction factor for her when she arrives. So that was the first time I'd started to talk the athletes through way in advance of like even what the country looks like, what it's going to feel like as we land on the plane. Because the first time I went there, I was like, whoa, this place is insane, because it's all that Arabic kind of architecture. Looks visually very different. You like fly over it and I was just like, whoa, okay, this is a different part of the world that I've ever been to. I can't even remember what the name of the prayer towels is, but they like play the hymns each time that's ready to pray, right? And it's like 5 times a day, and the whole city has this armor over it.
Yeah. And
it's like super cool and super serene. But yeah, it's all kind of enough that you're already overstimulated by the time you get to the fight.
Sure.
She told me about the videos and photos as well, that you gave her videos and photos like to watch and look at, so she gets like a visual reference of where she's going to go to like take that away.
Yeah, and then just like the good thing about IMAP was after being a coach on that team for so long, it was like, here's what each day looks like as part of the run sheet of, you know, when the weigh-in is, when you're going to have a chance to eat, how long you're going to be backstage for before we're ready, how quickly it moves once you go from the marshalling to being in the cage, and how unpredictable that is. Sometimes there's like 20-minute window, sometimes there's a 30-second window and you're being rushed. So a few of the guys, like, they've got a warm-up period where they need to like hit the right cool off from that without getting too cold before they're out there. There's all of those sorts of things, the highs and lows of the energy from because it's not a big spectator sport for the amateur side of stuff. So like when you walk out, sometimes there'll be some cheering, sometimes there's absolutely none, but there's also 4 other cages fighting. There's cheering for other shit while you're...
Someone could get KO'd over there.
You hear it, and you're hearing the clappers for the other cages. Seeing a few people get knocked out by turning around to look at a different cage when the whistle went and getting hit. Just like talking her through all of that shit. So with Michelle that year at Vaile, we did a really good job of just laying that all out, and you kind of got the vibe as she was into the tournament that she was going to win it. She just was on a different level in terms of preparation and mindset and stuff. So yeah, it was cool. But flying the food over was hard case. I didn't even know you were allowed to, because NZ obviously is super shit to fly into. You can't take any food into, but most other countries actually don't care. And New Zealand doesn't care if you take it out of the country.
I'll give you a quick one from my experience as well when we flew to the Oceanias. Was it last year in Brisbane? Oh no, it's 2022, was it? 2022, yeah, with Ezra Berghan and Ethan Brockett. And Ethan had to make weight each day, and then Ezra fought at his natural weight. Yeah. And we're at the airport, and like I have this photo on my phone, and it's ridiculous, so funny how like Ethan is like kneeling, trying to, you know, put all the things into the travel declaration, you know, for Australian immigration, like everything he brought. He was so stressed, and then Ezra is next to him, like holding his leg up on his like suitcase and like eating lollies and stuff. And I was like, the contrast of that photo is just absolutely is perfect. Anyway, I'm going to go to the next one straight away. No transition, no nothing. It doesn't really matter. Is you get asked a lot of questions, you know, around the gym. You know, you're the head of what is going on, head of operations. Especially yesterday, it was like I had to giggle to myself like so many times. Like, where's Carlo? Where's Carlo? I need to ask questions, and people bombarding you because it's just, you know, they go to you because you've got the answers. However, 3 most common questions that you get asked most frequently, whatever, top 3, you can answer them, all 3 of them right now, all them forever for the people watching.
I'd actually have to spend a bit of time to work out what they are.
Hey, in and around the gym.
Yeah.
Nothing that comes to mind?
No, a lot of that stuff, in terms of those ones, are all just small operational ones, like where's the tape, where do I go to... I guess one of the things that this is not... how related is it? What I would say, I think the newer generation of New Zealanders are at risk of losing, like, common sense. I think...
Oh, yes.
Back to the coaching thing, because there's a lot of extra stuff we could do. I'm not sure that a lot of it long-term is healthy. Even down to the pastoral care, like one thing that we've noticed was without people being able to take a sense of responsibility for themselves, a lot of them have been babied too much.
Yep.
And now they can't, and that's a problem for us because we lose members through that process, right? Like that churn happens all the time with people not getting connection to a coach straight away or not getting circled around individually because there's so many people, and not in terms of during the class, but like outside of class, they don't get a message from their coach saying, are you coming to training today? Small clubs, a lot of them do that sort of stuff. But then, yeah, the flip side was just like how bad some of the common sense related stuff is. It was like, I don't have the answer any better than you do, but I'll find it much faster than you're going to find it. But
persistence.
You don't even make an attempt to look.
Yeah.
So they come to me because it's easier for me to go do the job and come back to them than it is for them to have just done it themselves, which makes no sense. But yeah, that's a reoccurring theme in a lot of ways throughout the gym. Now that we're at a scale where we're hiring staff, like stuff like that, like that's quite an interesting one. As an employer, that is becoming more of a problem. And just in our general workplace, it's the same thing. Like loss of just, you really value those that have the attitude. When it's there, like proactive people that have a bit of common sense. They don't need to know the answer, and I'm not expecting them to know that, but I appreciate it when they make the effort to start with. Otherwise, it's literally just me doing it, and I'm paying you for it. So that's kind of a weird one.
I got 2 really good examples of, like, one is when Ezra Berghan, who is employed by CORE Mixed Martial Arts, does the vacuuming, and he does the vacuuming, and in between, like, you know, he does it in between his like strength and conditioning sets. So let's say I would walk in, fill up my water bottle, chat to someone, I look over and I see him doing deadlifts, like bam, 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 bam. All right, I continue to chat, and I look over again, and then I see him on the vacuum, and then look over again, and then he's onto another exercise, and then just he. But that's like being switched on, and you know, being efficient with your time. Or like Quay Taranaki is like so meticulous with it. He walks in, he's super structured, and he has an eye for, you know, like the way your surroundings are is the way your internally. So he like collects the bottles, tips them out, puts them away, arranges the body shields and whatnot, make sure everything is like in its place, then he starts the class. Those are the people that you need and want, because they just add value, and other people, just like, you know, myself or others, you know, pick up on it and say, oh yeah, I need to be more switched on with that, you know, I had to take that more on board. But I like your answer that it's not so much the most common questions and answers, is more so losing common sense. There's a lot of truth in that. Yeah, because lots of people are just too baby, and they want everything to be done for them. You know,
it's
easy.
Like I don't understand enough about the world and whatever else is happening to figure out like systematically what's going wrong. Like why are we noticing this pattern increasing, and how are we getting to this point? It happens. There's a certain amount with athletes as well. Like a lot of that's to be expected if they don't know stuff. Like they don't know to get their blood started. They don't know to get. It's just what the travel one's quite funny. Like. Some of the better athletes are like terrible with certain simple stuff, like literally losing their passports and all that sort of stuff all the time, right? Like, yeah, it's quite funny to be like, okay, fuck, we actually need a minder for these guys on the team just to make sure that they have all their shit.
And you send it out all the time, you know, with like, this is what you have to bring. I guess this is the perfect transition, because literally you could, like, making your life very easy, because you don't have to train, you know, you can do whatever you want, but you can manage your life from this couch. You can pick up your phone and order some food. You can, insurance, I got to do this. Everything is possible, and we talked about this yesterday. Like, everything is possible, is at your fingertips. However, with your IT, software engineering, and all of that, you have so much background knowledge, and you're educated on that as well. I want to ask you something about the future, because, with AI and everything else that is out there. And when I flew back to New Zealand last year, the first movie that was displayed on the airplane was Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And I was like, mate, they're reminding us again here, this is happening soon. However, my question is basically, with that funny example, or like Elon Musk with the Neuralink that, they have now the first patient that can move like a mouse cursor, through just their brain. Where are we heading with this, and how fast, Carlo? What is happening?
That's an interesting one. I think I'm not an expert in that field by any stretch.
Well, you have an opinion.
Yeah, I definitely have an opinion, and mine probably runs to contrast to a lot of the leading figures there that probably know a bit more. I don't think it's as, I don't think like the safety wise of it as a surgeon as anyone makes out. If you really, I'll give you like a 5-minute answer to this, okay?
Oh, make it 2.
So fundamentally, a big problem for this whole space is, take human evolution for example, right? It's the fact that your genetics can be mutated through stuff like the sun hitting that and slightly changing your DNA, and therefore you end up with like a neural pathway that's different, and it creates different behaviors, or biologically your body performs differently. With AI, basically what happens at the moment with AI is it's really just a model. Like, it's not really that intelligent. You're giving it a big data set, and it identifies patterns in this data set.
Yeah.
What it can do is, though, it can't really do anything novel yet, because the fundamental truth of it is the hardware underneath that hasn't changed. So the circuitry still operates the same way. So it really just runs the same thing. You could feed it the same examples every time, and it will end up with the same result every time, right? They haven't figured out a way to increase the randomness. So if you then made an AI machine where it physically changes the nature of the hardware, then you're talking a different thing. So I think until they start doing that, and I'm not sure, the big companies probably do that, but on a day-to-day basis, ChatGPT is not rewiring the hardware that it runs on, and it's not. It needs to do that level of stuff to break the rules of what it's allowed to do. Otherwise, the circuitry just runs the same way, right? Like, the laws of physics still apply to that stuff. But if you enabled it to start like fucking around with its own circuitry and changing what the operating system it runs on and stuff, and increasing random mutation on that, then you could end up with anything. Then it becomes more or less biological, right? But that's the bad thing most people are missing. When you start doing stuff like playing with Neuralink, where it's like there's actually a biological base which does change over time, then you could start getting some pretty unpredictable results through that. Like, if you were to take the AI algorithms and run them on a human or like a biological genetic map that changed, that would be interesting. Yeah. So I'm not sure, like, I don't know how they'll end up doing that over time, or what the near future for that is, but right now, until they start fucking around at that level, then we're probably sweet.
And probably safe. In terms of you like solving problems, you like building stuff, there's no doubt AI, ChatGPT makes doing that process a lot easier.
Way faster, yeah.
Where do you see that affecting society or in business?
We talk about it a lot. We actually got doing a directive to spend the day learning a bit more about what's happening in that space. Simple. Like, I've actually been really impressed with ChatGPT about how it enables quick content creation for stuff like simple descriptions on websites, so websites. That's like a great starting place for, like, I would say I consider it as being useful to remove writer's block.
Yeah.
Because, like, sometimes it's just the process of getting started. When you do it a lot and you're looking for like a way to make it different, that becomes really challenging. I run out of like almost like decision making points, or like I get fatigued from having to answer and make decisions for people all the time. So for me, making a decision about how many words I make can become a block, right? So it just immediately removes a bunch of those. You move pretty quick on that space. It does still, to me, feel quite predictable though. Like, you can start to identify, everyone was talking about there's a thing called a Turing test. So the Turing test is like one where you get a response from someone, and you've got to be able to identify whether it's a machine or a human. And if you pass the Turing tests, then you can't distinguish between the two. To start with, ChatGPT would easily have passed the Turing tests, right? Like, it reads normal. But now that you see enough of it, you can kind of start to identify when it has been ChatGPT created, if they haven't gone and corrected it. And one thing that is interesting with that is that the data for that feedback model is it's like got a circular reference, right? Because they're dragging all this info from all over the web to generate the model. You can ask ChatGPT about core, then it gives you some stuff from our website from 5 years ago when they created the model. It doesn't give you the stuff that's happened today. But what started happening is the indexing and it's learning off its own responses. And like some big problems that they're running into is that it will spit you out stuff that's not factually correct. So ChatGPT is designed to be grammatically correct, not factually correct. So you can ask it even, like, is this true? And it will say yes, and you ask, are you sure? Oh, actually I'm wrong, it's not. And like you can get shit like that from it. So people using it for the wrong purpose. All it is underneath the hood is it's a language prediction model. So it just looks at if this is the word you typed or the first few words you typed, what's the chance that this is the next word in the story, and then add some randomization to that. So
well, the biggest takeaway for me is here that if there's no concerns, I didn't see any hesitation in like answering, or you're like pretty relaxed about it. That was more important than anything.
The problem is like you take something like one of the militaries, right? Yeah. They don't really know what they're fucking around with. And it's when they're doing that novel stuff where they're like, okay, let's put some human algorithms into an animal, or like, figure out ways to connect different shit. It's just as risky that they just fucking nuke a country anyway. Yeah. You look at what's happening with a couple of wars kicking off at the moment. I don't think it's like the most important thing right now. I think people are still more unpredictable. But
I agree.
It's like, we could be worried about, could equally be worried that Putin decides to like fucking nuke Ukraine next, like, or whatever. There's a few
anywhere in the world.
Any of those countries, anything. It's all. Fucking NZ's had its own issues systematically with government lately around stuff like lockdowns being illegal and plenty of shit like that's just come out where it's like, who knows what's around the corner really.
Well, about
it's just right because it can.
But
it's going to happen anyway.
The word that comes to mind now is being oblivious to it. And I talked with Ben and Tim off camera. When we like got into it a little bit more, like certain set of questions. Let's call it the matrix question, I pull out the blue pill, the red pill. Would you rather know the answer to all of that, or would you rather just do you remember like in the movie how Cyphers, they're like, I want to be an artist and this and that. There is no trigger in your mind whatsoever. You could be you can die peacefully in absolute blissful, ignorance to what is going on. Which pill would you choose?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't even think, me personally, I think the answer would change on a different day, which is I'm supposedly like, because take coffee orders, most of the time I'll drink my coffee black, but I will occasionally change it up, and if I do change it, it's quite unpredictable about.
But no milk though, eh?
No, I will have like lattes. I have quite a bit of those. Fortunate, right? And Golden State Coffee team were based inside Core Reception for a while. She was the first one to be like, "Whoa, what the fuck? You change your order?" Like everyone just gets the same thing all the time. And I thrive on a little bit of variation. But I also think like that's one where I think you could ask that and it would really
well, it's situational, like how you feel that day, what's your mood, but I was just like, but I like your answer though. I like your answer that of course it can change. Sometimes I want to know, sometimes I just want to lay in bed, listen to the sounds of the rain and just leave me the fuck alone, However, I like that is part 2 now from when there's no free common questions, but what is actually the trend in, how society is going, and especially with the younglings, wanting to be baby, call it whatever, common sense gone. Anyway, we leave that out of the picture. Do you want to give us a little bit of a forecast maybe for Core MMA and the athletes and what you have in mind? Let's say, is there anything I'm going to box it up because I don't want you to go too far. Anything exciting happening 2024 that you want to share?
It sounds dumb, but I'm going to say no. it'll just be as good as the last few years have. There's not any massive changes planned for this year. The key one, how do we describe that? For me, comes back to the scaling problem. So what we're going to look at is the success that we've had with the team over the last couple of years around MMA, wrestling. The wrestling program with Toby's been going awesome. The Sambo, the kickboxing team. How do we scale the volume of high performance athletes and high performance results out to a wider audience? And what are some of the takeaways?
Yeah.
Tech's definitely one of the things in the picture there as well. So figuring out how do you take models of stuff that the high level people are doing that makes them successful, and then apply that to day-to-day people. Yeah.
Good. I like it. Also that you say nothing. Sometimes you have to be persistent, or you have to have the persistency and consistency. Just keep training and then see what happens.
Yeah.
That's how I read, like, in between the lines there. But yeah, of course.
Also big moments, right? Like Ethan and Ezra both planning to go pro this year, so that'll be a change, but it's not fundamentally that much of a change from what they've been doing.
But take that to the next one. I was about to ask you for the next 3 years. So maybe in an athlete space, like, let's box it up again. In an athlete space, like, do you see anyone like breaking through in the next 3 years and maybe making it to one of the big promotions?
I think heaps will. I don't want to get too much into individuals because there's just too many of them and it's quite very.
You could say yes or no.
Let them do that.
There's chances, there's opportunities.
But, we'll let them spill the beans on that. But the thing for us as a gym, or what I'm concerned with more, is like how do we transition more people into a professional working environment? Whether that can be from an athlete and a coach, but especially athletes. Michelle's the standout for me in terms of a person, because she's really the only full-time athlete that we've ever sort of had consistently come out of the gym. Even Luke, when he was in the UFC, was working through most of it. Him and Matt both did stints in Thailand where they trained full-time in Thailand, but neither of them did more than I don't think they went more than 6 months doing that. So Michelle's now like, I think year 2 full-time training in the US. So how do we facilitate more transitions towards that? Because that's funnel from hobbyist down to professional. We're talking like 10,000 plus students ever having walked in a core, and one single person making it to being a full-time training athlete. Lots that do stuff like, not lots, but we're now into maybe like 10 that do a combination of part-time work and part-time training, and their part-time work might be related to the gym, for example. So Ezra, Quaid, those kind of guys are making that transition. Ethan Brockett's slowly making that transition, but none of them yet. It doesn't seem feasible for us to have them based out of Hamilton training full-time and still being able to make a living wage from it. So that's what my biggest concern has been.
And then 5 to 10 years? That's long.
Basically, how do we do that at a bigger scale?
Done. That's all I wanted to know.
So,
International Man of Mystery, did we miss out on anything? Any links? Any holes?
No, that was pretty thorough through and through, I think.
All right, that's what just for that question, mainly I brought you in to like keep an eye on the landscape here. But Carlo, basically the last section is, do you feel like there's anything that we have to dive deeper on, or the other offer is you can ask me or ask a question that maybe you've got on your mind for podcast related or whatever it is. Maybe Tim with the media, or Ben is a wizard himself when it comes to that space. Anything?
Anything super specific. I think there's heaps of stuff to delve into real long. But I guess the random question on that whole thing would be like, what's the goals for the podcast? Sitting in what made you kick it off? I know there's a lot of just about sharing love and working with the community and all the stuff that you're quite well known for, but I guess where do you want to end up?
To end up? Yeah. Funny enough, when the I might start from a different angle and whatnot. When the space became available at CORE, for the massage, physiotherapy, whatnot, I think it was Ben, or someone was pointing it out, close to me, was like, why don't you go in there? And I was like, well, that means I have to pump out a podcast pretty much each week. How am I gonna? I cannot pay rent with this. There's no money in this. The first thing I said to Tim when I sat him down, I was like, brother, I cannot pay you this is for the obvious reasons, you know, maybe it's an opportunity that comes out of it. We're going to meet some cool people, you know, this is for the love of it, you know, like, who knows? I have no plan. I have no business plan written out. This is just, I love talking to people, and in particular, enabling others, you know, to benefit from the conversations. Where, like, I took so many things away just from, like, listening. There was, like, 3 golden nuggets already that I can name straight away. I was like, whoa, just thinking of something from that perspective, you know, amazing, you know. And if someone else can benefit from it, it's awesome, you know. I just, for whatever reason, I just love doing this, you know. It's awesome, you know. There's many different aspects that I could dive into why. But yeah, of course, eventually it would be some sort of creative space to have where we can have something set up, like, regularly without, like, moving couches and, like,
That would be so ideal.
yeah, and just actually have, like, a schedule plan for, like, the year, because I'm transitioning more into, you know, being more effective and efficient with, you know, how I communicate before and how I select, how I, you know, brief. Like, I add stuff every single time it happens, you know. But yeah, I want to be more consistent with it. Well, it would be cool to have, in my opinion, fortnightly or one a month. It would be awesome, and have a space where I can do that, where I can just walk in. Well, that's what we basically do now anyways, you know. I prepare everything as far as it comes to the guest, you know, the structure, the organizational, and I know that I can rely on Tim for, I walk in and he does everything else and he does his part. And now even Ben offered, you know, to have him as the international man of mystery, but also martial arts related as, like, a newbie. He can fill in as well, you know, if something happens, and then things will hopefully grow from there. But yeah, more consistently, and in a more professional space as well. And eventually, I don't know, maybe being able to pay him, you know, for his time being there, and maybe offering the guests something to come and be there, you know, if it's a gift pack or if it's money related, I don't know. Like, I'm happy the way it is, but, you know, just organic growth, call it that, you know. Yeah. And we're already moving into that direction, because yeah, when I started, I only had my phone and headphones, and I had to hassle people over the phone. And I remember, like, a recording it with Toby Fitzpatrick, we had to restart it, I think 6 times, because his iPad would lock automatically. His partner would walk in, his headphones were not working, to, like, actually having a microphone. And we didn't start with, like, lights, we didn't have cameo appearances, we didn't have so many different things, you know, like the schedule and how we went about it was, I don't even know how. And even the idea with Tim, it started with getting to know him through the Train Alta. And I was like, hey, do you want to be on the show with, you know, all the martial arts and military? I had a vision there. And then I was like, oh, fuck, why don't I just ask him, you know, to be part of this? And now we're sitting here, like, episode 18, 19, give or take, you know. So yeah, that's my answer. Cool. In that space.
I like it.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, sounds good.
Hey, good.
There's been a bit of chatter around that with CORE, with the getting a podcast room kind of thing up.
Yeah, that media training.
Yeah, it's been something we've been battling with for a while. We lost a little bit of the opportunity there. But even with our full force, like, beatdown shows, we stream the whole thing free to Facebook. So we were making, like, a bit of a push to see what we could do in that media generation space, and whether we could get, like, that kind of Wimp to Warrior Train Alta program, even just, like, a bunch of the background stuff building up to those people having their fights.
Oh, I would love to do that.
Yeah. So we dabbled with that a little bit. But yeah, I just wanted us to get to a scale where we could then professionalize that, so it would be reliable, continual.
Reliable, yeah. It's got to be.
Yeah, or the commentary I would love to do as well for that.
Yeah.
That would be cool. That would be an awesome experience. But yeah, inspired by, you know, just Ethan going from being a competitor to being an MC. Yeah. That's so cool.
That was such a funny switch. Like, man, let's diverge for 5 minutes, but he's been an interesting character to have worked with, because out of everyone that we've done our professional sort of goal setting with for the MMA space, he's taken on board some of the surrounding factors way more than I was expecting, because he came in so quiet back into our space when he got reintroduced to it. and like he had nothing posted on social media at all. And he was the first one when I sat down, and we have like a process of going through for like a 10-year goal, and then we work backwards from that to identify what you need to do this year to be on track towards that. And yeah, one of the things that we got back to was like he was the first one that immediately came to the session and had like 3 strong as goals that he needed straight away for the long term. And it was like, okay, well, this is easy. These are just done by numbers. One of them, I don't want to share his personal goals too much, but it was like to basically be a top tier organization and fighting professionally. And we did, cool, let's just model what those people look like how many fights have they got on their pro record, how many fights on average do people have on an amateur record before going pro. If he distributed those over years, it worked out he needed to fight like a minimum of 3 times per year. If he ever gets injured, we need a bit of contingency in there, so maybe 4 times per year on a good year. But then one of the things we did was like, what's going to help you get a contract? Or how much social media followers do they have? Let's model that. Take even Michelle, she's in PFL now at entry level. What does that look like? And we worked out like he basically had to do something like a social media post or 2 a week at an absolute minimum to catch up, and he'd never done any. And so it was like he sat on that and like he was like, yep, so he got all this, went away, and like 3 months later he still hadn't posted anything, and I was in my head, I was like, oh, he was so serious. Like I really thought he was gonna
do it.
Yeah, just like
clicked.
He was like, I've just been thinking that, and then it snapped, and he just fucking was on a roll with like so many good funny posts, and I was like, we were all laughing about it because it was like, holy shit, who knew that Ethan was so funny? Like he'd been so quiet that whole time, and then he like just went from that to his friggin' singing in the cage, which caught most of us by surprise. His ability to pick up his MC, just like all of that stuff's playing into that really well for him.
Really lent it to being the villain as well in that video on TikTok.
Massively, yeah.
He was just like salty tears and like replying to all the comments and just really leaped into it.
Yeah, big time, and it was super interesting to watch that transition. Contrast that with Ezra, who like a couple of his social media posts have made me laugh. So when he's funny, he's like incredibly funny, but it's just like consistency lacks enough to build the same audience. And I think that's a big one with that social media stuff, is like you have to be willing to be persistent enough to do it every week. But or whatever, right? So that was quite funny seeing all that stuff play out that way.
That's another good one actually for us to think about, to have a separate space just for social media, to have where we can post other than just being on Spotify, and then through the personal account. Yes, definitely. There's lots to improve on, but at the same time it has to be organic. It has to happen when it happens. There's so many other things to work on also, but it's good reminder too.
I like the format you guys are with at the moment. Some stuff that I'm probably excel at more than not is like long form storytelling. Like one of the attributes I know about myself is I'm not very good at like a short sell. If I just meet you, I can't just say like do this and people just like take it on board. Some people are great at that, and if you're pitching for investment, some people are really good at that. With me, it tends to work better if I know the person over a longer period of time. Like they build a little bit of trust, and stuff happens better, or you can explain the logic of why you're doing it faster. But I think for you guys, it's an interesting contrast, because obviously this is very long form. So then it's like, how do you get the interest or get people to buy into actually taking the time to listen to a whole podcast? Like, what's the short form version? Obviously, TikTok's a great example of, or Twitter, like, 2 second bam stuff that gets people interested.
That's definitely a strategy.
That's definitely on the cards for myself in terms of goals for the podcast, is to get multiple cameras. Eventually outsource some of the editing process as well, so we can do like once a fortnight. There's multiple cameras. The editing process is going to be longer, but then have a team where someone can go through and find the best parts, or figure out what's the quickest, efficient way to do that. And it's certainly not sitting there for, not me anyway, sitting there for 2 hours finding that 5-second thing and go,
that's it.
I watch some of these professional podcasts and they're amazing. The cinematography, the way they compose their shots, and then the trailer they have at the start of the 2-hour podcast full of all these banger moments. I'm like, who's the person who sat there, and how is it? Are they sitting there going, is there someone, are they taking notes? Is that what I need? So that's probably actually, now that
see, that's another thing.
Probably sounds like a really
trailer that we talked about.
Piece of paper and go, that was good. Timestamp. I don't know that.
I just watched a movie trailer for the first time in ages. There's a new, it's called like The Convert, I think, a new NZ or Indigenous Māori-based film.
Yeah,
It looks amazing. And yeah, so I just taken on the trailer. I was like, I'm sold. I'm going to watch that.
Yeah.
This looks epic.
Cool. This is what I need to do tonight.
Yeah.
So when I get home from this podcast, I'm going to start going through the footage I shot yesterday.
Yeah.
You got like 5 hours of footage,
That's
and
not
you're
bad,
wanting
eh?
to find the best bits for a 90-second clip.
Yeah, absolute mission, man.
Hey, what happened?
So, you know, it's just fun, especially when you find those banger moments. Oh, I didn't see that. I get to watch it back frame by frame.
Yeah, I need to go rewatch all the fights from yesterday as well. There's definitely some, and well, I've got like 1 or 2 bits in mind, but there's so vast so much shit going on today.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's heaps that you miss.
Yeah.
Like,
What is it? Talking about media, do you want to close off the show?
Sure do.
Adapt Media.
Make sure I can see myself. So for the first time on camera this evening, I'm Tim, Adapt Media. If you're in the Waikato and you're needing social media content or branding content to promote your services, give me a shout out. Check me out on Instagram, adaptmedia_NZ, and we'll get to talking.
Carlo Meister. Any shout outs?
everyone,
Everyone?
all the usuals.
All the usuals?
Yeah,
No one in
everyone
particular?
hasn't given up on us yet.
Alright, sweet. That's it, another wrap. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you to the International Man of Mystery.
Members.
Come on.
Thanks, man.
And clap it up.